Hey y'all, welcome to this kind of like system design kind of episode where I talk about cache in this video and how I was able to implement it into my application. So essentially, what is a cache? Well, cache is kind of like a temporary data storage where we kind of store some data so that in future requests we can easily retrieve that data and serve it a lot faster in the future. So kind of like in advanced storing data. So yeah, we just serve it out faster. It's usually a memory type cache because memory storage is very efficient, very fast. Like milliseconds, like under 10 milliseconds type fast. It's extremely fast. So how I use it in my application is, let's say I have a unique ID of kind of a lesson to get data from. So let's just click on this lesson, right? This is going to be kind of like the unique ID, um, and then kind of also the key ID as well. But like, yeah, just the unique ID. I make a request, and then I get the data. So you can see it took 459 milliseconds for that request, but that's not important for now. I'll get to that later. But yeah, so I have a unique ID right here. So let's say if I have a bunch of users making application to this unique ID endpoint or URL, I'll be serving that data back to all the users, right? So user one, let's say a bunch of students or users. They make a request, and then I serve a response back to them in a different color. Request, I make a response. Like that. Okay, this does not seem like too much of a bad idea, right? This just seems like a simple idea. Oh, okay, like we're making a request response, right? But thinking about it on a high level, if you want to increase performance, output, and speed and make user experience a lot more better, if we're returning the same data each time we make a request, oh, look, we're making a request each time we're getting the same type of data right here. It's the same thing. Then we want to kind of think about using a cache, right? This is kind of like a temporary storage where we can kind of serve the same data that people are making a response. So we can request, I can store this in my cache, and then from there, I can just serve that same data. Okay, well, essentially in this model, logically, I can serve it back here, and then I can just get it from my server endpoint. Right? That's what's happening. This is kind of like a high level overview of it, exactly what's kind of happening. So to show some application code, right? Um, so my application endpoint where I'm able to use this and serve the data is here. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm first checking by the unique ID right here. I find it in my cache, and if it's there, then I just return that cache data, right? And if I don't, then I make that API request to the external endpoint. From there, I get the response data, and then I save it with the unique ID into my cache storage. And then I just return that response data right there. Yeah, so when they make the first request, it's not in the cache data, then we make the external request, we save it, and then if they do it again, then we can respond with that cache data. To think of kind of some anomalies and stuff that I've came across was that sometimes, um, as you can see, look, it took about 73 milliseconds to return data from cache. Sometimes this would be 20 seconds, which is horrible for performance. So what I've kind of come with a workaround is I have a promise function, and then I have promise.race. So essentially, what's happening is that it's telling me it's racing these two different functions and things. So it's saying like whichever returns first, return that. And on top of that, I have this timeout that says, okay, well, after 3 seconds, if I don't get any response from my cache data right here, just cache data, then just quit that and then go on to making the API request right here. That's essentially what it's doing. So it's just saying abandon chip. If it's been more than like 3 seconds, that's enough time to give you a request period. Just end up making the API request. So to kind of visualize this, I'm using Redis for this. So I deleted it, make a request. The first request took about 397 milliseconds, and then we can see that it's now in our storage database, and then refresh it again, and you can see that it's served in 62 milliseconds, which is a pretty good like factor. Like look, 6.4 times performance in data retrieval, which is very marginal. If you think about scaling your application, like you'll be like it'll be tremendously useful. But yeah, and then one thing to also kind of probably mention is that sometimes you don't want to like fill up your entire cache storage. Is the things that have a TTL record or time to live on each data for about 5 minutes, which is about 300 seconds right here. Look, I set the client expiry date for that um, entry in that database to 300 seconds or 5 minutes before it is deleted. You can see it has about 4 minutes or 244 seconds and so on. So yeah, I hope you guys kind of liked that video, understood how caching works at a high level and how I was able to use it in my application. Thanks.